Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm your host, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson, a.k.a. Uncle Tex, a.k.a. Professor Tex. Before we get started, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share with a friend. Any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below. I'm all down for constructive criticism. It's all good up over here. We don't trip on it like that. Hey, man, this season, I haven't done a lot of certain things that I've done in the past, going over games and different things of that nature there. Simply because it's just like this season's kind of been a weird season for me. Some might say, oh, because you Cowboys. And when I said, well, I know they wasn't going to do nothing anyway. I was pretty much done with them insofar as that egg they laid out there against the Packers there in the wild card game last year when they had all the Ducks lying in a row. That team is pretty much done. As far as I'm concerned, they're done. Unless they do a miraculous comeback, which it was a good thing that they beat the Skins and whatnot and everything of that nature. But, not a lot of stuff. But I'm going to start, because it's starting to get interesting. This kind of season kind of been a little bit boring for me, so to speak. But that's just how I feel about it, But as you see what I got up there right now, a matter of fact, before we even go there, let's do this. Speaking of games, let's go to the standings and whatnot. You see what Buffalo is doing, what Buffalo does every year. I just got through telling the guy that telling the cat that on Twitter. Same shit every year with them. I don't see anything different from them. They're going to win that division more than likely and whatnot, but we'll see what ends up happening with them. Josh Allen has been quiet. This is one of the first years where they ain't been hyping him like they always been trying to hype him and whatnot. We'll see what Miami does. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Yeah, you got Pittsburgh and Baltimore played a hell of a game last night and whatnot. Another one of those quarterbacks, Herbert and whatnot, trying to make him out to be probably more than what he really is supposed to be. I still see Baltimore getting that north, but that's another thing. Cincinnati lose one more time, it's a wrap. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. It's a wrap. They lose one more time, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Ain't nothing else you can say about it. It's a wrap. I don't give a fuck if dude throw 5,000 yards or whatever like that. It doesn't matter. With Jamar Chase, it doesn't matter. If them cats ain't winning, it don't matter. Put up all them stats all you want. Good for Jamar Chase, but as I say, Cincinnati is a trash organization, trash team insofar as what they do. They got young players because all they try to do is try to hopefully win and get a decent quarterback and whatnot during the time when he's still in the midst of his rookie year, rookie contracts. And that's their whole MO, is trying to win off of the first 3 or 4 years in the league and whatnot. And they can't do that. They're not trying to pay. They'll pay the quarterback, but they won't pay and get anything else. Like my man said up this, I can't remember his name, but like he said, the amount of money spent over on offense, the amount of money spent over on defense. Houston, they starting to turn on old boy already. C.J. Stroud. Hey, we'll see what happened with all that. Indianapolis still has a chance. Kansas City, got the Chargers there. Kansas City's going to do what Kansas City does. After you've won 3 and 5 years, what eventually ends up happening, in a lot of cases it hasn't done in the past, what ends up happening in a lot of cases is that, 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, 50 touchdowns with Mahomes and stuff like that, Kelsey's yards and all the other kind of stuff, doesn't matter. What matters is that them jokers right now is 10-1. That's the only thing that matters. I say they find all kind of ways to win. And I've told guys this before. You better stop sleeping on Mahomes and his athletic ability. He showed you with that run that he made with 30-some-odd seconds left. And to put the ball back in his hands, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. That's go time. That man thrives on go time. When the chips is down and stuff like that, it's go time and whatnot. So, it is what it is. Yeah, man, and whatnot. I think they play the Raiders coming up. What this show mainly about this week here, I'm gonna touch on a couple of different topics and whatnot. But the main thing is the performance that was put on by Saquan Barkley. Now, a lot of cats who may or may not remember, I was always critical because I always say the Penn State curse of running backs, whether it was DJ Dozier, whether it was Blasphemous, whether it was A lot of different cats and stuff like that that come out of Penn State don't really be much. Larry Johnson, a lot of them cats and whatnot. Saquan Barkley is doing things that I always thought Saquan Barkley was supposed to do. If we go look at his stats real quick and whatnot, we see what he did the other night. 255 yards, if I'm not mistaken, on 26 carries, 2 touchdowns, 72-yarder was the longest and whatnot, 9.8 and whatnot. 4 catches for 47 yards, 302 yards that he sit up there and came up with. My man's balling. He's balling at a level that is what he's supposed to do. If you go back and you look at some of his career stats and whatnot, it's 1307. I'm not even going to do the 1,003. I ain't even really worried about that. Then didn't do much that season. Then his third season, 34 yards, 593 yards, 20. It wasn't good. Then he finally gets back at age 25, 13, 12, 10 touchdowns, goes to the Pro Bowl and whatnot. This year he's probably going to get his first team All-Pro, which is important and whatnot. Possibly Offensive Player of the Year, possibly MVP, we don't know. But as I've told y'all before, and you go back to my older broadcast, when I sit up there and talked about this, the MVP is a quarterback award, so we'll see what happens with that. Lamar keeps doing what he's doing. He's probably going to win his third. We'll see what happens. You got Josh Allen up in there and everything. I'm not going to put Burrow up in there simply because at the record that they are, even down to Jamar Chase and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. But he is playing at a high level. He's with a team that actually appreciates him. The best thing that happened to Saquon Barkley was the fact that Saquon Barkley did not stay a Giant. Even if they would have gave him the money, they was going to fuck off and not going to put anything around him. He's at a team that really supports him, that really wants him to do certain things, Put it this way, this is what the Giants rely on. And this is why sometimes you got to get rid of old school thinking. The old school thinking, because when they talked about, let's go back to the 90s, 80s, late 80s, 90s, or whatever you want to go, back when Lawrence Taylor played, back when my man played and whatnot. He had Joe Morris, right? Even though he was, I think, first team All-Pro when they did the things that he did and stuff like that. When they won their first Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl era, when they then you had O.J. Anderson, and he came over from the Cardinals and whatnot. You had Brandon Jacobs and my man number 44, can't remember his damn name, it escapes me at this particular time and whatnot. Them guys at 2 Super Bowls with those guys there basically in the backfield. Bradshaw, I think that might have been his name, I'm not sure. But, they figured, well, shit, we won, and we didn't have no major running back making that major. None of those backs was considered the best backs or anything like that. Yet, Tiki Barber later on, them years before they actually won Super Bowls, but, he's kind of considered kind of an uppity Negro and whatnot as far as that was concerned there. And, he just it wasn't a giant as far as that was concerned there, but he put up his last 3 years in the league was actually phenomenal and whatnot. Doesn't deserve to get into the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but he did some great things. So that's why they figured they wasn't going to pay him. But he's a difference maker. This guy, Saquon Barkley, can do everything. And I was always critical of him just because he was a Penn State back and the things that happened with Penn State backs. Guys could be good backs coming out of college, but they get in the pros and they just fizzle out. The only backs that you had that was from Penn State that was worth anything, Lydell Mitchell and the great Franco Harris, RIP with him and whatnot. So that's why I always said what I said when it came to him and whatnot. But what he's doing right about now, he's on a phenomenal pace. He's already eclipsed his 13-12, his 13-07, his best years as a pro since coming to the league in 2018. He's at 1392. I figure he'll probably finish with about 1,800 yards, maybe, and whatnot. Tough team. Eagles got what they needed to get. This coming from a football fan, we're not going to sit up there and be trying to, I thought you was Dallas and all this kind of stuff. No. I'm looking at enjoying watching him play and watching him succeed because he's worth it. I just felt he's going to the Giants. He ain't going to be worth it. They're going to fuck over him over there. And just like I said, that's exactly what they end up doing. And they end up paying Daniel Jones, who pulled a Derek Carr, I think that's the cat's name, pulled a Derek Carr and whatnot, and I just released me from the team. And he quit. He quit because he got benched. I can overstand that to an extent, but at the same time, he ended up quitting and whatnot. They could have paid Barkley. But if they paid Barkley, what was they going to put behind Barkley? He would have wasted away there. They would have got hurt, got injured, and all this other kind of shit goes on there. So the best thing that ever happened to that of Saquan Barkley was the fact that he left there and he went over to the Eagles in an NFC East rival. We know Dallas wasn't going to make no play for him. Dallas could have got goddamn Henry for a little bit of nothing, but they didn't want to do that. That's why with Dallas, love Dallas. That's my team and the whole nine. But I told y'all, at the same time, they don't do nothing every fucking year. Dallas does nothing. I don't know what Jerry Jones' problem is, but that's neither here nor there. But at the same time, this is what we're talking about. So he's having a hell of a year. That those runs that he had there, I think that was Sunday and whatnot, out of this world, played balled out, 255 yards against the Rams and whatnot and stuff like that. 70-some odd yards. His longest run was 70, I think 72 yards touchdown. And Barkley can do it all. There's nothing that he can't do. It just got to stay healthy. And with a team, and like I said, when you're on a sorry team, a lot of shit starts happening to you, even if you're not even an injury-prone type back. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's what happened to a lot of it. Kajana Carter, he's another one. And what that had a lot of praise coming out of Penn State. Go to Cincinnati Bengals, blow his shit out, and never to literally be heard of from again. And I can go into a plethora of running backs and whatnot that came out of Penn State and did it. That's why I said what I said. And guys are saying, but he's the most talented. I said, I never said he wasn't. I just said it's the curse of the Penn State backs, and he's going to a sorry-ass team. That was the whole thing going to the Giants. Giants was not going to treat him right because of, we figured, we have a pretty decent back and stuff like that. We're going to win everywhere else and whatnot. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we're not going to pay no backs and stuff like that. We saw that on the Hard Knock Life and whatnot. And so we know what they were going to do. And you see they're falling apart. They're falling apart like stewed chicken. Okay? So that's what's happening right there with that. But it's really good to see him. That leap that he made a couple of weeks ago, when he did the spin move, I'm like, Saquon Barkley is playing out of this world. That is what he was supposed to have done when he came in the league. That's what he started. And then it just went downhill from there. And he really didn't catch back on until 2021 and whatnot. After coming off of injury, he missed a lot of games and whatnot and stuff like that. So he's at a place that really appreciates him. The Giants never appreciated him. They never appreciated him. Going to that of the, what they call it, making sense of modern era semifinals for the Hall of Fame class of 2025. You guys know I've told y'all guys this several times. The way that I gauge that of Hall of Famers, I've said this. What did I say? You got to play for a decade, 9 to 10 years. Got to play for a decade. You got to be the top 4 to 5 in the position that you play. You got to have them all pros. You got to have them Pro Bowls, even though Pro Bowls don't mean shit to me because Pro Bowls, they haven't played really decent pro. They play PE. That's PE that they play. So I don't really pay attention to that bullshit that they go about that they go about and whatnot. So what ends up happening is that with a lot of these guys, so what I end up doing is and then what big plays they made, what playoff games they won, Super Bowls and different things of that nature, because all of that stuff plays a role in becoming that of a first ballot Hall of Fame, a second, third ballot Hall of Fame. If you ain't in the first and third, there's really no reason to even be having it. It shouldn't be no old timers committee. Either you was the shit when you played or either you wasn't. It's just that simple. So some of the guys that they may have up here now, let's take a look. Let's take a quick look. Let me see. They talk about the no-brainers, Eli Manning, Luke Kuechly. Eli Manning will probably go in, I say second to third ballot because he's 117 and 117. Put up some nice yards for that era, that the time that he played. He was unconscious, the things that he did in that of the 2 Super Bowls that he won. He was the Patriot Slayer, slayed Belichick and that of Brady and whatnot. For those who need that, he did that. I don't know if it'll ever be any other quarterback that was like Manning, because Manning has, I think, the record for 7 first-team All-Pros. The next one is that of Johnny Unitas, who had 5. Then you start running out because some of your top quarterbacks ever played the game. They was like 3-time first team All Pros at the very least and whatnot. So whether it was guys like Marino, whether it was guys like Montana, whether it was guys like several other different guys and whatnot. So what happens is that these guys and what they end up doing and whatnot, they got a picture of Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon had a couple of nice years and stuff like that, but that was about it. Couple of years, not a lot of years. You have to be able to, and even if you play, like I always go back to the Earl Campbell and Gale Sayers and the Terrell Davis rule and whatnot. Those guys at the time that they played, Terrell Davis went in the time that he was supposed to win in because of what he did in a 3-year stretch at 16, 32, 48 games, I guess, something like that, 48 games. And whatnot. In 48 games, Terrell Davis was the best back in the league. He was the best player in the league at that time. And then he fell off the cliff. But won 2 Super Bowls, 2 Offensive Players of the Year. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he won the MVP, if I'm not mistaken. Because I saw somebody say, oh, you ain't had a back going for 40 years. Well, I ain't been 40 years. And whatnot when it comes to that of Terrell Davis. And Terrell Davis, let me see. Let's go ahead and look it up all the way. Love Pro Football Reference. Yeah, 1998 MVP. And that was back in, it should have been like, I think, 98 if I'm not mistaken. So and he had the 2,000 yards. And so what else you want him to do? You can't leave him off of the Hall of Fame ballot. If these guys aren't doing that or haven't had different type of careers, something like that, where you was the shit for a 3-year run, a 3 or 4 year run or whatever, stuff like that. But you got to put in at least about half a decade of being that guy. And some of these guys don't deserve that. You can like them, you can say this, you can say that about them and whatnot. But if them guys wasn't those type of guys, like I saw it was one cat. We talking about London Fletcher, which love London Fletcher. London Fletcher was him and guys like the field mouse, Sam Mills. Which is why when I played in high school and whatnot, my game was kind of after him. I played linebacker, I was short and whatnot and stuff like that and everything. But it's like what he did at the time, it's like going back to London Fletcher and that and so he had the same tackles as that of Ray Lewis. Where was the tackles made at? Now, there was no doubt that he was a tackling machine. That was no doubt in that. Where was the tackles at? That's just like a guy throwing for a ton of yards and whatnot, and the team is 6-10. So what does that say? You're playing from behind. So you have garbage stats. Same can happen in the tackling area. You can have 200 tackles. Where was 100 of your tackles at? Nice. Like I used to always sit up there and say, I would celebrate 1 to 3 yards of a tackle. Celebrate. If he goes 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 8, 9 yards, you making tackles 10, 15 yards downfield because you can run. That don't really mean a whole lot. Where was the TFLs? Where was the meeting the motherfucker up in the hole? That's what I'm talking about right there. So we can go on and on and on and on about that. But those are the what I look for in a Hall of Famer, and the longevity. And then what did they do when they were in these particular positions and whatnot. So that's what I'm talking about. That's what's important to me. They're putting too many guys in. I've already told you guys about this. I told y'all this was going to happen back in 2019. I told y'all that. And it's happening. And now you're going to try to put everybody in there. You got guys arguing for Jim Plunkett. You got guys arguing for people who's like, I'm not, if you're going to argue for Jim Plunkett, then fuck, argue for Mark Rippon. Argue for Brian Sipe. Argue for a ton of guys and whatnot and stuff like that. But it's like those guys, it's like, no. Just because a guy won a Super Bowl, especially playing the quarterback position, if he didn't if he was a bust for all those years and end up living or getting to be at a place where he could sit up there and do whatever he did, that's cute. But we can't negate the first 9 or 10 years of his career when he was considered, even though it wasn't used, a bust and whatnot. So that's what we're talking about here. So that's where it goes at. We'll go back to Eli Manning, 117. His namesake, yeah. But I was like, he led the league 3 times in interceptions. 3 times. Not 1, not 2, but 3 times. He threw for a lot of 4,000 yards. He had 3 or 4 30 touchdown seasons and whatnot and stuff like that. And he won 2 Super Bowls. His last name is Manning and whatnot and stuff like that. And, and all that. But if you compare regular season to, like I say, his brother, it's not even a competition. It's not even it's no competition. But what Peyton did, people say, well, Peyton was stacked. Okay, Peyton was stacked. And Peyton made work with what he said. That's why, but they hold that against him because they figured when he was that stacked, then you should have won 4 or 5 Super Bowls. Maybe, but he did win 2. And at the end of the day, that's always good. My favorite quarterback, y'all should probably know by now, is Dan Marino. Never won anything. But you put him on a team that was stacked up and stuff like that, I see him winning 2 or 3 Super Bowls. But that wasn't it. That wasn't the case. Doesn't mean that he wasn't a great. He's still on Mount Rushmore as far as I'm concerned as a just straight pure thrower of the ball and whatnot. So that's what lies with me when it starts talking about this Hall of Fame shit and whatnot. But they're throwing everybody in there. And I go back to what Prime said. Coach Prime sit up there and say, hey, man, that's like, got the Hall of Fame, you got the Hall of Game. You got this level here, and you got this other level here. It only should be this level here. That's why it's so hard to get in the Hall of Fame in baseball. A lot of guys did good things. You put them in the Hall of Fame because he played 20 years? Then why isn't Jim Marshall in? Why isn't Clay Matthews in? You going to put him in because he played for a long time? Why isn't somebody like Sterling Sharp in? Due to a freak injury, that's what put him out the game. You know what I'm saying? That's what put him out the game. So if we're going to be fair, be fair. If Tony Baselli can go in, then Sterling Sharp should go in. I've already done this. I've done plenty. I've done plenty of shows like that. But it's like, yeah, then put him in. He has to go in because Sterling Sharp was that guy. And all you gotta do is look up his numbers and tell you everything that you need to know. But like I said, though, again, like I said, in a lot of instances, in a lot of cases, and whatnot, how I look at this is that these voters and everybody since the 100th anniversary, because it's going on like 5 to 6 years now of the NFL and whatnot, and what they have done. They just feel as though they're going to put everybody in. And I'm just like, that kind of takes away from it because the NFL was second to none, considering baseball, of the pickiest to try to get in the Hall of Fame. They was the pickiest. You didn't just go in there just because. And that's why I said you got to judge these guys by the eras that they played in. Were they the shit in the era that they played in? You can't be trying to have a guy from the 50s matching up with guys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and 2000s. I go back to Jerry Kramer. Jerry Kramer was one of the better guards back in the 60s. Was he the best? Probably not. However, at the same time, he was on winning teams. He did a lot of things that they neglect when it goes in the later years and say, okay, yeah, put him in because, well, you should have did the same thing with Jerry Kramer 30, 40 fucking years ago. 40 years ago. But you kept putting them all. So many great guards, so many great tackles, and so many great offensive linemen that played in the game. So that's why. So these guys, so now you want to try to hurry up and put them in because you think you should put them in. You put in Steve McMichaels. When I think of great defensive tackles, I don't think of Steve McMichaels. But you put him in because of the condition that he's in. Hey, that all of that was based upon you felt sorry for the guy. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have put him in the Hall of Fame. And I think a lot of that comes back to the woke movement that we have out in the society, and it's trickled down into that of our sports. Make it stay over there in bullshit land and shit like that and go from there, but don't put it down to sports. So that's my take on that and whatnot. So, that's how we go about doing it over here. But that's how I judge the Hall of Famers. That's why I say somebody like, but no, it's no talk of Lester Hayes. And just like, How's there no talking less than? I've done countless of shows on that, and they don't want to do that. I'm like, come on. But in the end, if you're going to make them a Hall of Famer, I understand in the era that they played, at the time that they played, that's what you got to put into consideration. If you don't put that in consideration, it's all lost. It's lost. If you played in the 50s, you played from 1950 to 1960, your mainstay was the 50s. If you wasn't top 5, no, you don't belong in there. If you don't get in the first, second, or third, you wasn't that guy. And at a time, the Hall of Fame used to do that. They no longer do that. And so that's what I'm saying is that were you that guy, like you saw what Jim Brown did. You go we'll take it back further. First major back, if you want to say Steve Van Buren. Then Jim Brown just took it to a whole nother level. Then O.J. Simpson took it to a whole nother level. Then you had, whether it was Sweetness, whether you had all them guys, Earl Campbell, Eric Dickerson. That's the level that's how you judge your back. If your back is not doing what Eric Dickerson did, he's not a fucking Hall of Famer. Close to what he did. People say, well, Tony Dorsett only done 4 Pro Bowls and da-da-da-da, and he only did this, that, and the other. But he did something that at the time when the NFL was only 60-some-odd years old, what did he do? For 7 straight years, no other back had never did it. But then you try to throw in Frank Gore. Frank Gore had 1 year with 1,600. He was 1,000, 1,200, 1,100, 1,200, 1,100, 1,200, 1,100, and whatnot for a long period of time. You're going to say, we're putting them in for longevity. But was he that guy? Was he an Eric Dickerson? Was he a Juice? Was he a Sweetness? Was he a Emmitt Smith? Was he a Barry Sanders? Was he that type of back? No. Don't sit up there and tell me Frank Gore was that type of guy. He wasn't them fucking guys, man. Now I watched a lot. Dude, I've been watching football for damn near 50 years. Don't tell me he was. Now, we go back and rewind. We go back, take it back to somebody like, let's say, Franco Harris who won 4 Super Bowls, and it was about running the ball and defense. Okay? Franco Harris was consistent for close to a fucking decade, and they won if you're doing that. Frank Gore, what? Consistent. What did they win? Nothing. A couple of good years there with Harbaugh, but he really wasn't that guy. If you're going to put him in based on the fact that he played a long time and he got 1,000 yards, and I said, if you're not doing 12 and 1,300 yards in a 16-game season, now a 17-game season, you wasn't that guy. And I thought Frank Gore was a nice back. But Frank Gore, he had that 1,600 yard season. I say everything else 11, 12, 1,100, maybe 1,200, 11, but basically 1,100 yards. I need to see 13, 14, 15, 16 and up. 13 and up. Very good season if you get 13. Oh, he got 1,000 yards. Big fucking deal. You look at Derrick Henry and what Saquon Barkley's doing, that is what a back is supposed to do. That's what a back is supposed to do. You gonna tell me that? Nah, if you wasn't the shit at that time, so like I said before, if you're going to put them guys in, you got to use that particular mindset to put in there. You can't say these guys are supposed to be in just because they did this for a long period of time. Jim Marshall played a long time. But what Jim Marshall has going up against him between running the ball the wrong way after a fumble. He was in the Super Bowl, the biggest game. He was in all 4 Super Bowls. When he played against the Raiders, he didn't even make a fucking tackle. Then you got people throwing for Chuck Foreman. Chuck Foreman was Roger Craig before Roger Craig. He had some good years. I'm not going to sit up there and say he didn't. Love to see Chuck go, spin doctor. Look here, man. I love them backs in the 70s. That's my favorite era of backs. But he was no better than somebody like Lawrence McCutcheon, and you don't put him up there. Tony Dorsett went like 6-7 years straight Nobody had never in the history of the game had done that. So that era, what he did was something that nobody had ever done, and they were winning. So absolutely, and a 99-yard touchdown run. And come in, rookie, not starting after winning the Heisman and a national championship, and Landry wouldn't even start him. But you drafted him in the first round, and you wasn't using him. And he said, I got to run the daylight. I got to run to what I see, coach. I can't run what you telling me. If it ain't nothing, I got to bounce that shit. That's the difference. You got to look at the errors, man. You got to look at the errors. You got to look at it. There's been a lot of good backs, a lot of very good backs, and all across the board. But if you did not dominate your position for a 4 or 5 year span, nah, man, you don't belong up in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. Don't put your ass in there just to put him in there. All these Miami alumni sit up there talk that shit. And I said, it's fine. Y'all wanted to be always so we are Miami. Yeah. Yeah, but Clinton Portis, hell of a back. His first 2 years, hell of a back. His 1 or 2 couple of years over there in Washington, yeah. Did he do it for year after year after year after year after year? No. Barry Sanders did it year after year. Emmett, Walter, Juice when he finally got his shit going on. Earl Campbell's first 4 or 5 years in the league. The first 3 years in the league, you can't get no better than that, man. What we talking about? So that's my take, but that's on all positions. Tackle, guard, center, wide receiver, tight end. What did you do? That's the difference, man. That's the difference. I can't say Rich Cannon, he da-da-da-da. He had a couple of years. He had that 1 year with the Raiders and stuff like he was the MVP and everything like that. What else, though? Shits and giggles. We got time. This is Rich Cannon. Rich Gannon or what? Rich Cannon or whatever. Rich Cannon, Gannon. Four-time Pro Bowl, two-time first-team All-Pro, 6'3", 210. And his best years was that in his 30s, 34, 35, 36. And he put up 4,689 yards, 26 touchdowns, 10 picks. And I think that's the year that he won the MVP. And didn't get throttled. He's playing at a time when these guys like Peyton Manning's making a name for himself, Tom Brady, all of that at the time when he started getting his stroke on. Other than that, he has a bunch of years it wasn't worth a shit. He was 76-56. Good record. Good record. Not a great record, good record. He caught lightning in the bottle, did his thing. Okay. Played 17 years. His first 10 years in the league was none of it. He came in when he was 22. He didn't start getting it on until almost 8th, 9th, 10th year in the league. Didn't win the Super Bowl. He got the other stuff. Okay, fine, give it to him and stuff like that. But to try to sit up there and say he's one of the best quarterbacks that ever played, I disagree. And that's no shade on him, man. The dude was playing, especially that 2002 season with Jerry Rice. Tim Brown. I think Charlie Garner was over there, if I'm not mistaken. Dude, but you can't put everybody in there. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? Okay? That's my rant on that. Kind of off the subject a little bit here. All you young brothers, whether y'all white, black, orange, green, whatever, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm a big CGA fan. Coach Greg Adams. Y'all need to go and support that man's channel. Give it more so. He's the only guy over in that space giving y'all knowledge of what y'all need to do dealing with these females and dealing with life in general. He's a great role model and whatnot, and I think the brother deserves some props and whatnot. Demonetized 14 times, I believe, and whatnot. And hey, man, it's like a lot of great information for young men over there. And a lot of you NFL players and whatnot, a lot of you cats coming out of high school, highly recruited guys, watch these goddamn females up out here, man. Watch them. Watch them. Better watch them. That's all I'm going to tell you. Watch them. You know what I'm saying? But you get your stuff together, fridge and lifestyle and whatnot and stuff like that. Y'all do what y'all need to do, man. And shout out to Greg Adams and whatnot and stuff. He may not ever see this. Hey, but CGA, big, hey, man, you know, keep doing what you're doing, man. Definitely appreciate you and whatnot. And like I tell you guys all the time, there's no GOAT, there's no greatest of all time as long as time still is going on. And like I tell you guys, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. You guys have a good one.